Hello, you are listening to the Field Coach Experts podcast, where we share the secrets of improving franchisee engagement and performance. Today, I've got my buddy Jen Brannon with me. How are you, Jen, today?
Great. Thank you for having
Yeah.
me.
Yeah, I always love how you say that as if like you're my guest. I guess I made it sound like you are my guest. It's not your fault.
I could be your guest.
Yeah, and then you just get to answer the questions. But you know how this works. We're gonna have a
Yep.
conversation, right? And so today we're gonna chat about, well, not just chat. We are gonna share some secrets about communication that builds trust. And I find that, when you hear this term communication, it's kind of really vague. It can be like, what do we exactly mean by that? And I bet you if you asked 10 different franchisors, at a conference, when you hear that word, what do you think of? They'd all think of different things. So, but when I hear that idea of communication that builds trust, the three things that stood out for me that I thought we should chat about today are the first one being let's just get real, human to human communication. We often see people that have to have a change a situation, with a franchise, make something happen, make something change, influence some behavior, and they haven't even kind of tried just having a conversation with the person. And we'll dig into that. So that's number one. Number two is communication channels and systems. I know a lot of people, when you say, what do you do for communication? They go right to like the platforms and the things. And so we'll chat a little bit about what we get to see, because we get to lift the hood on so many different brands and work with them and meet them at our roundtables and all of that. So we'll share some things that we kind of see and think, what we think about different communication channels and systems. And then the third one, which we hear all the time, and this is a like a evergreen one for sure, is my franchisees don't read the communication, or they're not taking in the communication that we're sending out, whether that's email or your hub or whatever that platform is that we'll talk about in the second point, that they're not engaging with it and they're not using it. So stick around to the end, because that'll be where we'll really get into some of the things that we see working and we help franchisors with on that level. So how's that sound, Jen?
I'm ready. Let's roll.
Okay. All right. Let's roll. Okay. So starting with this human to human communication. So yeah, I was thinking about how often now I don't get the opportunity to work directly with our clients, but I do at roundtables get to hear a lot. And often when we're talking about a franchisee that needs to be compliant or take action, maybe it's just even this week, they had said last time we met that by now they'll have gone out and knocked on 30 doors or dropped flyers off or whatever it is, and they didn't do it. Why do you think, I guess let's start with this, like, why do you think often people struggle? And I guess we should talk specifically about the field support teams, because they're the ones that are probably going to have that conversation. And so if the person listening to this, if you're a COO, think about the people that you lead. Why do they struggle? What do you think, Jen? Why do you think people don't just come up with that? Yeah, let's just have a conversation, and they sort of get all tripped up.
Well, I think it's they don't know how to keep someone else accountable to begin with. But I think a lot of times they're not sure what their place is, right? Because this is still that person's business. And I know a lot of coaches think that way, think that, well, how can I keep them accountable? If they're not going to do it, it's their business. So they're just not going to do it. And who am I to question them? So we see a lot of coaches who are always, oh, well, that's okay. Try again next week, and what they don't understand is they're actually really doing that franchisee a disservice, because we know that good accountability is what moves the needle with franchisees and helps those franchisees do what they need to do in order to grow their business and so on. And so I think it's just a matter of those coaches just don't have the skills or the ability or feel like they've got the credibility to have those conversations. Therefore, it's so much easier just to avoid them.
Much easier. Well, and I would add, maybe they don't have the skills and the credibility, the things you mentioned. Maybe also they haven't been really given the official permission by their leadership, right? Like I think they might not know. Like it's kind of goes to what you said. Is it their place? Like, is it my place? Like from the side of the franchisee, you feel like, oh, well, it's their business. Is it my place to call them out on something that I can see? But also, does that want my boss? Nobody told me if I can do that. Like that's another issue we see, that often the field support role isn't defined in clear enough expectations about how they can bring value to franchisees. So there's a lot of, I guess if we chalk it up, there's a lot of unknown uncertainty, which leads to fear.
Yes, absolutely. I think it also can go the opposite direction, which we've seen plenty, where rather than avoiding the confrontation or having a good human to human conversation around those things, it's now the coach or whoever it might be working with this franchisee is actually acting like a parent or a teacher or a boss. And therefore it's like, well, you have to do this and you were told this, and and now it's like punitive, and they're getting into trouble. That equally is just as ineffective and has other consequences. And so I think people have a hard time finding the balance between being direct and being harsh and not knowing what that difference is.
Right? It's one or the other. I guess if we step back, one or the other, it's they're too empathetic, too nice, or they're too harsh, and it's like in the middle is being direct and being kind.
Yeah.
Right.
So what does that mean? What to you, Ange? What does that mean if somebody's going to just be direct and kind? What's the difference?
Yeah. Well, I think it starts with if you were the franchisee, me being the support person, saying, I think it starts with, Jen, I have an idea, or maybe I have an observation, and I think it might be helpful for you if I share it. Are you okay with me sharing that? Actually, let me start here. Even before that, you have to have built trust with the franchisee. So that's a whole other conversation, but that includes doing things like the follow through, doing things you said you would do with the franchisee, and bringing them value and showing that you care about them. So once you have to have a bit of that relationship, but then it's saying, so Jen, because I care about you and I really care about your success, are you open to me giving you some constructive thoughts, on what might help you move forward more? And then I'm getting your permission, and then it's not me saying, you did a terrible job of this. It's more like, I noticed that you were going to do 40 reach outs last week and you only did 20. What got in the way? Let's have that communication in this real human to human. And then you might say to me, oh yeah, I know I got sick and I blah, blah, blah. And then, okay, let's talk about how we can, make up for that as we go. But if it's done in a harsh way and it's like, well, Jen, you didn't get your things done that you said you're going to do. Now you feel like I'm accusing you, and it's like authoritative or punitive, as you said. So that's how I see the difference.
Yeah, no, I think you're right. I think we always talk about asking the questions, questions to understand. Yeah. And I think because if more people would do that, they're afraid of let's say they're afraid of the conflict, or coming at someone with, oh, they didn't do something they were supposed to. Well, yeah, if you come at them with, well, why didn't you do that? What happened? What, in much more of a harsh way, you're supposed to do this. Yeah. Then of course that's uncomfortable for people. So of course they're going to avoid it. However, if it's much more of I care about this person, I want them to reach their goals, I'm just going to be asking questions to understand so that then maybe we can figure out a way, just like you said, I think, Ange, of something got in the way last week. Okay, let's figure that out together so that you can get this done next week because it's important to you, and you don't want that same obstacle to get in the way if you can help it. So let's figure this out together. And asking those questions, it then it kind of just takes the conflict out of what people think is really a conflict.
Yeah, this is what I wanted to get at. Like, it's why are we assuming it's a conflict? And actually, I wanted to say too that it's if we reframe in our mind back to this, like there's a difference. Anybody that's maybe read or heard of radical candor will know right away where I'm going with this. But it's like caring while challenging directly, like caring for the person but challenging them because we care. And if we have to reframe it and go, if we care about them, why are we letting them make this mistake or do this wrong or not be compliant to the brand when that could actually be hurting them? And if we care about the other franchisees, like we human nature is to think that giving constructive feedback is not caring, but it's actually the complete opposite. I think that's at the end of the day, that would be a good takeaway for people that are trying to help their coaches have more human-to-human communication and just getting right into the reality of like the truth. So I think, would you agree that would apply if you're having a conversation about compliance, maybe complacency? You know, I noticed you haven't been at your store as often, or you haven't been doing your networking activities, or just curious what's going on there because I really want to see you successful. I think it applies to kind of any of those difficult conversations, and I think it builds trust because it shows that you care. What do you think?
Yeah, yeah, 100%. I think you've mentioned the Radical Candor. That book is a great book for anybody that's communicating. Well, that's communicating with anyone, but especially communicating with franchisees.
Yeah.
I think it's a good read that we would recommend.
Yeah. Okay. I think that's probably good for this section. We'll now move to communication channels and systems. So again, when people hear the term, or like if I were to say host a roundtable about communication and I didn't say what I meant I was going to talk about, this might be what they'd think. It's going to be about, what are the ways that you communicate with your franchisees? What platforms do you use? How often do you do it? And what's working and what doesn't. So let's just get a few out on the table. What are some that you're seeing in the brands, like different ways, things that franchisors are using to communicate to franchisees?
Slack is a big one.
Yeah.
As far as a platform, Teams, of course, is huge. There used to be, we're not seeing it as much anymore because I think of AI and the switch, but there used to be a lot of intranet, in like big company, well, not big, it doesn't have to be a big company, but company-wide intranet, which is everybody logs into in the beginning of the day, and they would have a messenger kind of functionality within those. What about you, Ange? What kind of comes to mind beside what I said?
Yeah, I think, often the franchisor will have some kind of a software for other things that includes communication on it, right? Like it might be their resource hub of whatever sort that is. Different dashboards and things sometimes have it built in. But I think maybe people can guess where we're going with this. Is like, is there, people are always looking for the system, like, oh, if everybody's using that one thing, I should be on it. But as people are hearing, we get to see under the hood of hundreds of brands. And I can't say strongly that the majority of people use this or the majority of people use that.
Right.
So what would you say? Yeah. What would you say to somebody who's kind of looking for that silver bullet?
I think when it comes to silver bullet on communication, there isn't necessarily one. And as we know, that if you are just relying on one channel, you're doing yourself a disservice. And lots of franchisors do that. It's like, we only do everything on Slack, or we only do everything here, right? And or we only send email communication. That's the other one that we hear a lot of. And I think one of the important things is how you choose to communicate with your franchisee. Is a huge component of the culture that you are trying to create for your franchise system. So just kind of keep that in mind. If we're only communicating them via email, just think about you and all the emails you get and how unhuman a lot of times emails tend to be, and how when you get so many emails like so many of us business owners do, it's like, okay, too much. I'm not even going to read a lot of these. I'm too busy, right? So there's a lot of factors in here. So we always love to say, use multiple different channels in multiple different ways to say the same thing. Like if you've got a message, there's a new initiative that you are releasing or something. Maybe there's a couple of emails. Maybe it's the big announcement. Maybe it's on a team call. Maybe it's also on your Slack channel. Maybe you're doing a video. Like there's all those different avenues, and it's not just one.
Yeah. Well, we're almost naturally going to segue in a minute here, it sounds like, into the franchisees not reading or tapping into the communication. But just before we quite go there, do you think that, so I guess kind of where you're going with that is maybe that different people respond differently, learn differently, or take things in differently. So you want to have some different ways that they can then, consume the communication, or not just consume, but participate when it's a back and forth situation. I don't know. My feeling is it'd be good to have, like, here's the main one, so that it's like when you go to the grocery store and they say the price the price on the package is what would go by if there's a discrepancy, like what is the truth, So would you say, like, have that kind of main and then have other ways that you're sending it out so that
100%. Yeah. I love Slack, to be honest. It's probably one of my favorites. And maybe it's because I've seen it used so well from a culture standpoint, where everybody embraces it and it's part of the day to day. It's always up and running, and the franchisor has been the one driving it, and then the franchisees have kind of picked up the ball and ran with it, really. And it's so much one of the big things I love about a Slack or anywhere that you're using some kind of platform is not just having it be the dry stuff, the operational stuff, the announcements. We talked about this being culture. Have the fun chat. Yeah. Have the personal stuff. Here at EC Inc., we use a platform called Voxer for our because we're a remote team across all of North America. We've got our down to business chats and things, but we've also got our core value shout outs. We've got our fun chat where we're showing, hey, I went to the Madonna concert last night. Look at me. And we show pictures and things. That stuff's huge for culture, and it brings people to your platform because they want to see that fun stuff, but they're in it, they're using it. And also I will say, a big thing that I see now is video. Whether it's on your Slack or you're sending it via email or you've got something else, but more and more brands are using video messages, because people like to see their franchisor, I know for some franchisors that every Monday they do a 2-minute kind of motivational video that gets sent out, I think via text even, not even to the platform. So video is a really, really great thing because you can communicate what you need to communicate and they're seeing you. Especially for those franchisors that are growing out and away from their franchisees somewhat. Yeah. I love that because it keeps your franchisees feeling connected to you.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up. I was kind of thinking about the video side of things too. And I think this, once again, kind of it's we can't, I mean, we would love for everybody to use whatever, we just pick one channel and it works and it's got all the things we need. But in the real world, we know that that's probably not the case. So I think the biggest message I would say to people who are trying to figure out what platform to use is figure out what you're going to use, accept that it may not work for everybody. You know, you might have to struggle a little bit with adoption, and you may need to you're probably also going to need to use these other methods like we talked about. But once you decide, just go all in on it and like be upfront. It's, you know, kind of back to that human to human thing. Like, yeah, we know there might be this or that makes it not perfect. You know, I'm especially saying this for people that are on a system right now. Maybe it is the intranet still, and there's lots of brands that are like still intranets and spreadsheets and like not using AI. We'd encourage you to get on board, but if even if that's what you're using, just like go all in on it. Don't try to. Just don't worry about it. Just focus on, I mean, unless it's not working. But as we get into in a minute here, like the fact that franchisees don't always read it, it's not I don't think it's about the platform always. Like it could be a little bit if your platform is really clunky or hard to get into. Like you want to make sure you don't have any major friction, like logging in, or it's got to be user friendly. But it might not be, the reason they're not using it might not be the platform.
Right.
That took me a while to get that out, but hopefully it made it, like it took a minute to get it out. But okay, so I think we can now move into the franchisees reading and not reading. First of all, let's acknowledge that we're talking about, when we say communication, we're talking about a few things. We're talking about reporting out to franchisees, like, hey, here's what we're working on, or announcements and things. You mentioned, I love that, like the founder or leaders of the brand making a video. Sometimes it's one to many is what I'm getting at, right?
Yeah.
And then sometimes it's back and forth. In this case, when we say franchisees don't read anything, we're talking about the one to many. They don't read, they don't watch the video, you know, whatever it is. Yeah, what do you think is going on there when franchisees don't read or tap into whatever they're being sent?
Yeah, it depends on what it is. Like if you are only sending emails and you're wondering why aren't they reading them, it's because that methodology is not necessarily working. So in that case, I would highly recommend that you find other avenues as well as, and you know, you can even survey your franchisees and say, we want to communicate with you. We want to use, 4 different channels. You can give them a list, a quick, like, what are all the ways that you receive information best? Or, and you're never going to make everyone happy. I think that somebody's probably heard me just say that and going, oh, I don't want to do that because they're all going to say different things or whatever. I mean, we just have to understand we are never going to make all of our franchisees happy. But at least you could get some information. If 80% of your franchisees love Facebook, then maybe have a Facebook page and maybe get it on Facebook, right? Like there's all kinds of different ways that you can do it. If you have all of these things and you're still experiencing franchisees saying, oh, I didn't hear that, right? I would then be wondering what else is going on, either with that franchisee or with the system as a whole. Is there discontent and people who are maybe not happy with certain things, or they're just unhappy or whatever, therefore they're not buying into whatever you're trying to communicate with them. Then that is a whole different ball game, and you've got to dig deep and you've got to find out what's going on and why they're feeling this way. If it's just somebody who's just maybe that it's not as dramatic as that, then I would be getting my coaches or whoever it might be, maybe it's even somebody from marketing, having a very trusting conversation and saying, what's not working for you? This is the way we're communicating. What's going on? How come that doesn't work? Like not in a accusatory or anything. I want to make sure I'm providing you with the information. So what would be the thing that we could do so that you could receive this information, and have one-on-one phone calls and try to
Kind of like what you did,
uncover.
what we talked about in section 1 of today's podcast.
Yeah. Yeah. Because that also maybe it's not going to change anything, except for it might, you calling somebody out like that. And when I say calling out, I mean it in a way of, you're just having a conversation and you're just saying, what more can we do? Maybe it's just them realizing, oh, they actually do communicate a lot with me. And maybe I do need to get back on board with this. And maybe it's not that they're not, and it might just be that trigger that we need to get that person back to recognizing, yeah, they send me a video every Monday, but I don't take the time to watch it. I should probably do that. Right? But we need to coach to that. We need to coach to them realizing it on their own, because if we go in there saying, well, we send you a video and then we do an email and then we do this, and when you're like, what's wrong with you? Everybody else gets it. Why don't you? That's not going to work either. Right? We got to ask the questions so that we can bring them around to realizing, okay, maybe I need to get on board.
Yeah, and you might even in there ask questions that show them the value of what you're trying to communicate. Like how if you knew that if you read this email or opened this Slack channel, you would have a good sense of what's coming up in the next couple of weeks when it comes to marketing, and be able to plan. How would that feel if you knew in advance? Like maybe they aren't bought into why they need to do it. The other thing, 2 thoughts that went through my head though on that. One is, first of all, it might be a red flag, but it might just be that they're busy, right? Like we also have to factor that in. And it also might, on the flip side, be a red flag for whoever's putting out the content, that maybe you're not putting out very valuable content.
Good point.
So
and they may be busy, or they may just be saying they're busy, thinking they really are busy. And that could be a red flag to the coach to be like, they're not that busy, or their sales don't show that they're that busy. Let's dig deeper. Yeah. Right. To see what's going on. That let's get to the root cause, because them not having time to, read an email or watch a video. I don't know. I don't typically buy that they're too busy for that. Something that might take 2 minutes. It's that they're not prioritizing it.
Yeah.
Why?
Again, it might be, they might not be prioritizing it because it's not valuable or whatever. But again, it's about finding out what's going on there. Going back to, again, this. So see how it's interesting, because again, people think often, the problem with the communication, it's about the technology. Well, is it? Like, it could be, but it could be all these other things. And by finding out, by asking questions, and just instead of just kind of making things up and skirting around, just find out. And hopefully there'll be enough consensus to make a decision. And if not, you just have to make a decision, and then everybody has to remember that they're in a franchise, and you have to remind them. Like often that's the solution to a lot of things too. It's like, hey, you chose to be in a franchise, which means there's going to be times where we're thrilled about what's happening, and there's going to be times you're not going to agree, because you don't get to decide on everything when you're in a franchise. Sometimes you have to go along with things, and so yeah. I'm reliving my experience as a franchisee. So what I'd love to hear your thoughts on as well is, like, so sometimes franchisors worry, am I sending too much? Like, is there a point where, like, there's that whole send it out 7 different ways, or send it out 10 times, and then once they hear it, say it one more time. There's things like that I hear. But like, if there's a lot going out, and I am busy, and I'd rather be out selling in the community, or networking in the community instead of reading, like, what if I already know this information, like, how do you kind of find that balance? What do you think?
When I'm about prioritizing, because I think if you're sending it, every announcement, every piece of content, every piece of information out 7 different times, then that's not what we're saying here. It's those important things. It's that announcement or a new, like, a important priority that like everybody needs to know this and needs to hear about this. And so be very selective of what you are going to send out in all of these different channels. And then really prioritize all the other stuff. Potentially, if it's not as priority of everybody needs to see it, maybe that's just on a dashboard somewhere, like with the what's new, or maybe it's something that your coaches during coaching call is just going to be mentioning casually, or whatever it might be. I think it's really keeping the key priorities to being those big things that are going out, in all kinds of different ways.
Yeah, so maybe what I was just thinking is like maybe there's like even a decision funnel for what goes into the communication. Like, is this going to clarify? Maybe the questions you'd has to pass through would be like, is this going to clarify where we're focused as a franchisor? Is it going to is it clear that it's got some value for the franchisee? Like, whatever those things that has to sort of criteria for it to be part of communication. And I do think there's definitely a need to streamline. I think that's what you're saying too, but like streamlining, like I liked, this is old school, super old school, but back in the day when I was a franchisee, I remember there was something called Friday Notes, and then they changed it to a Thursday, so then it was Thursday Notes. But it was like always had a format, so we knew it's going to tell us what new stores opened that in the last week, if any. It was a little bit like a newsletter, but yeah, I guess you'd call it like a newsletter. It had new products that were coming, products that were being discontinued. Always a section for like marketing promotion stuff that's coming up. So it was like a really formatted, and then there was always, of course, the catch-all area. So whether that's back then, oh my gosh, it was sent by email, but there was even a time when I was a franchisee, it was by fax. I should not have used that. But yeah, whatever. I feel like that's maybe what I was getting at with like there's sort of this main hub, but if it's really important, I think the point isn't just other places, but other ways, like you said, video versus just typed out. Maybe again, back and forth community, like whether it's a monthly call where franchisees can ask questions about the initiatives, if that's more their style, and you run through the highlights or something. But we're not giving any exact answers here because there isn't a perfect answer.
Right. Yeah.
Right. You have to, try different things, see what works. And, and again, communication is, it's critical, but it's a bunch of things. And I think at the end of the day, like if a franchisee is engaged, they're far more likely to want to look at any content you send out.
Absolutely. 100%.
But it might just be a franchisee engagement issue. If your
really
franchisees don't want to hear from you, maybe they're not engaged. And then, Jen, what would you say they should do?
Well,
they can always reach out to AC Inc.
They definitely
right?
can. We can help with that. That's one of the main things that we do is help brands improve their franchisee engagement. Because to your point, Ange, if you've got engaged franchisees, then it means you're doing the majority of the things right. I think, right?
Yeah. I was just talking with a franchisor today, and we talked, and this comes up from time to time, but once again, how dangerous a high-performing, disengaged franchisee is, because they've got like this sort of power, right? And there's so many things that make them dangerous. But at the end of the day, when it comes down to communication, it builds trust. Disengagement is a big red flag, and there are ways to fix it. And it starts with understanding, again, the human-to-human connection, and how do you operationalize that in a way that actually drives results? Like, we're not talking fluff. We're talking, when franchisees are more engaged, we're seeing higher royalty revenue coming in. We're seeing better compliance, which is better for the brand on the whole. We're seeing franchisees building teams out and feeling more confident to do that. So
multi-unit, buying another location or opening another location.
Yeah, I mean, you always see it at their conferences. Like, as you know, I just had the opportunity to speak at a franchise conference, and for a bunch of franchisees, and they're engaged, and they're like, yeah, how can I grow, right? And so, engaged franchisees are probably going to want to grow and communicate with you and read all the things that come through, no matter what platform they come on. So that maybe that's the kind of underlying thing. But let's go to the Go Be Awesome challenge. Meaning, what is the thing that a franchisor could do this week to start to improve communication in general, but kind of all the things we said, but especially maybe getting franchisees to engage with the communication?
I'm going to start it with the basics. I think they should just do an audit of
Yes.
their current system, right?
Yeah.
Like where are we at? How are we doing it? What's working? What's not working? And if they're really struggling with that and maybe they're only doing email, maybe do a survey, to a quick and easy one question survey with lots of answers, lots of, how we can select multiple, survey your franchisees and ask them how they best would like to be communicated with important announcements and, initiatives or something from the franchisor. That would be kind of the first thing I would say.
Yeah, asking the questions. I mean, if people think that even sounds overwhelming, they could even just, maybe the field support people can ask that question in their calls or something. Just the point is start to go find out what might work best. It also shows the franchisees that you care, care about what works for them rather than just being super corporate about it and just going, this is what we're going to do. So,
Yep.
Okay, well, there you go. There you have it. All that we told, all of the secrets, right?
Yep.
Just got them all out. This was fun. And as always, always fun to just, share the things that we're seeing out there and things that are working, things people are struggling with. So that is it for today. As always, though, the goal here is to leave you with simple, actionable ways to level up your field coaching and improve franchisee engagement and performance, and really ultimately unlock the hidden profitability that's sitting right inside your brand. So if you're listening to this today and you got a new idea, or your mindset is shifting about franchisee engagement and all these things that we talked about, be sure to either pass it along to your team and or reach out to us. We always love having conversations about this. We're happy to be a soundboard and or we can share ways that we can help. So until next time, go be awesome.